Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Lore of League of Legends. In this episode, we're returning to a champion that has been redesigned since first covering him over 2 years ago now. He's been shamed by a dereliction of duty, exiled from his homeland, and sentenced to ascend the slopes of Mount Targran to find redemption. Without further ado, I present to you the lore of Taric, the Shield of Valoran. Enjoy. Expected to serve as a stalwart guardian of Demacia, Taric's life was meant to be the model of focused, selfless dedication to the ideals of king and country. Always seeing himself as a protector, he, however, never felt the need or limit to define whom and what he protected. Most of Taric's contemporaries were focused on the martial principles of battle, which came naturally and effortlessly to him. The young warrior was drawn instead to the fragile wonders that gave life meaning. This was a potentially treasonous philosophy to have, especially for one of Taric's standing and role within the military hierarchy. But he chose to dedicate himself to understanding the simple truths of love, beauty and life, so he could become their champion. Admired by all, Taric used his disarming manner and innate warmth to charm his way past most obstacles, and on the rare occasions that they failed, his skill with hammer and sword would be counted on to settle the matter. As his quest for understanding broadened, Taric would miss combat training to wander the forest in search of a glimpse of a rare animal, neglect parade drills to sit in a tavern and listen to a bard's hauntingly simple ballad, and skip regimental meetings to take horseback rides to observe the silver cloak of night settle across the countryside. Taric knew in his own way he was training in a manner that just as dedicated and focused as his fellow Demacians, yet it wasn't seen that way by his superiors. Taric's casual nature, disregard for orders and disinterest in his patriotic calling finally put him at odds with nearly everyone in authority, his family, his king, and especially his longtime friend Garen. And while the commoners saw Taric as a charming rogue, Garen recognised him for what he truly was, a man with the potential to become one of Demacia's greatest heroes. The fact that Taric seemed to be thumbing his nose at his destiny as well as his country enraged Garen. Eventually, even his former friend could no longer protect him, and Taric's military career began to crumble. Demotion after demotion pushed Taric further from Demacia's heart until at last, he found himself commanding a small squad of lowly recruits assigned to guard an inconsequential ruined fortress out in the borderland wilds. After weeks spent standing in the rain and mud as ordered, and with no threat evident, Taric decided to let his men sleep while he wandered to a nearby temple to take in its cyclopean architecture. As morning dawned and lit the temple's overgrown cloisters, Taric finally decided to head back and check on his men. He was greeted by a scene of carnage. His troops had been butchered in their sleep, their corpses bearing the jagged hallmarks of the Void's monstrous predators. Taric had failed his men, his country, and perhaps most painfully, his self-avowed mission to protect life. He returned to Demacia in shame, stripped of his rank and sentenced by his old friend to endure the Crown of Stone, a ceremony that demanded a dishonoured soldier to ascend Mount Targran. This was known to be considered a death sentence, as few mortals who ascended the slopes ever returned. While the Crown of Stone was traditionally used by the dishonoured to simply flee Demacia and make a new life in exile, Taric decided to actually atone for his mistake and set out for the towering spire of Mount Targran. The ascent nearly claimed him, body and soul, numerous times, but Taric pushed past the pain, past the memories of his mistake, the ghosts of his dead men, and other tests inflicted upon him by the mountain. As he approached the summit, Taric was challenged by a seemingly never-ending myriad of conflicting realities, each warped existence offering a new horrifying vision. Taric experienced the infinite fates that could befall those who had no one to protect them in their time of crisis. He saw the alabaster library engulfed in pitch and flame, and still he dashed into the rolling inferno to retrieve the poetry of tongue. He screamed in rage as the Frostguard ran the last Dreamstag off a blind cliff, and then leapt into the abyss himself in a desperate attempt to save it. Before the even gates of Noxus, Taric slumped to his knees at the sight of Garen's shattered body chained aloft as a warning. Between Taric and his friends stood the sum total of Noxus's might, and yet still without hesitation, Taric raised his shield and drove all before him. Claiming Garen from the gates, the young warrior marched towards Demacia, heavy with his burden, knowing full well that his return would ensure his execution. As he walked, Taric looked upright, and the blood-strewn fields of Noxus gave way to the star-filled expanse of Mount Targran. His trials complete and freed from all illusions, Taric found himself stood at the pinnacle of the mountain, and he was not alone. Before him, cut from the sackcloth of night itself, stood something wearing the shape of a man, its features composed from the pinpoints of the stars, yet he was struck by the familiarity of its nature. Its voice spoke in 1,000 whispers that cut through Taric like a mountain and wind, and though he had heard no recognizable words, he understood the figure's intent with utter clarity. It called itself the Protector. Impressed by the steadfast resolve that Taric had shown throughout his trials, the otherworldly being deemed the fallen Demacian hero a worthy avatar, imbuing him with ethereal powers. The Protector spoke the truths that Taric had known his entire life, and of the mantle that he had unknowingly been preparing for with every decision that brought him to the top of the mountain. As the Protector's whispers faded, Taric received a final warning, that he would stand as the shield of Valoran, but crashing against him would be a wave of howling madness, an ocean of gnashing teeth intent of consuming all, a squalid horror born of the void. Reborn with purpose and power, Taric gladly accepted the seemingly impossible challenge, and now dedicates himself to his sworn duty as the steadfast guardian of the entire world. And that's all I've got for you this time around. Let me know what you thought of the video by hitting the like button and leaving your feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave a link in the description to the original Taric lore, as well as a link to the entire lore of League of Legends playlist. Thanks for watching everyone, and as always, I'll see you next time.